germ of the idea came to Tony about. I mean, well, there were two germs. There was the
spreading.
Yeah. I never for a minute thought that I'd ever work with Tony Allen when I was listening to like his records and Fella's records. I just sort of sang this little line in a tune about him, just sort of like as a praise to him, you know. And that he obviously, it was his germ of an idea for us to meet up, and I did something on his home cooking album, and really it has grown from that point onwards.
So really, Tony, you're the brains of the operation.
Yeah, well, him is the one. Anyway, I would say because it's kind of like really impressed me, you know. From apart from him singing about Tony Allen, makes me dance. It really impressed me on the home cooking album because he went and did it on his own, in his own studio, and brought it back, and that was it. I said,
the reason
because I was not even there to help him for anything, to help him for my patterns, cut count, and everywhere. I wasn't there, but he came back with very good results. Also, I said, yeah, now I think he could relate to my patterns.
So, building on from this, then, when did you sit down and think, right, this is the sort of material I'd like to write, and this is my dream team?
Well, that came sort of nearly 2 years from its inception. When Paul turned up, that's when. Well, we've got a band here now. We've been to Lagos. We've played out there.
You'd worked with Damon before as well, hadn't you?
Yeah, just briefly a bit of live work with Blur, and then.
Well, it wasn't a bit of light work.
Yeah, it was quite
bloody 8 months solid touring virtually.
Yeah, so it's kind of a continuation from that. Really, just asked me to come along to Nigeria to kind of play as well.
What were you doing at the time? Sitting at home watching daytime TV, thinking, waiting for the call.
Pretty much, yeah. Rich and Judy and that kind of thing. So yeah, it was a great experience to go over to Nigeria. I'd never been to Africa before. I never particularly listened to much African music, but listened to a bit of Fella and a bit of kind of...
You'd be there for what? Did you have all the material already?
Yeah, Tony and I, when he had time, had been coming over from Paris, commuting, and we'd just been...
And did you sort of hit it off immediately? Were you both going in the same direction musically?
Well, I don't think that's what this band is really about. I mean, it's not like a bunch of youngsters who found a kind of common ground and started a band. It's a different thing, and you know,
sort of more instinctive.
Yeah,
it's like
it is.
People just respond to what each other are playing and go, okay, well, he's playing that way. It's like the other day when you did one of those telephone interviews, I was told, they said, oh, Simon said that that you were making space for my bass playing, and I was saying, well, actually, I'm making space for Simon, and Tony's making space for nobody, and it was like, and it was basically, oh, you're all very polite then. And I said, well, you know, we're playing together. It's like, you know.
It's surprising you got anything down at all, it sounds
well,
like.
it's communication, really, between each other, you know, rather than turn the volume up to number 12 and just create some barrage of noise. It's like as you said, in really aptly, that is quite a delicate record, you know.
But I try and write in as difficult time signatures as possible, but in this particular place at time, you know, we don't work like that.
It's like a cake, you know. The recipe is these are the ingredients, and it's so far it hasn't overbaked or undercooked.
Yeah. I think it was a bit ambitious for me to try and sort of explain how I felt about being in Nigeria and its relationship with where I live. At that point, I'd probably be more capable of doing it now. So it was a bit confused, and you know, I think if you're making a record like this, the last thing it should be is vague. It's got to be quite incisive, really.
Friday night in the kingdom of doom. Oh, ravens fly across the moon. All in now, there's a noise in the sky, following all the rules and not asking why. When the sunset well begins, turning into the night, I see everything in black and white. And then
When I first met Damon is when I came down to his studio to listen to some of the tracks from Nigeria. We basically had a 3-hour conversation, really just get to know each other, talking about because we discovered we're neighbours, and we started talking about the area and books, and I think it's probably the books. Like we used to cross-reference with each other, pass over and say, oh, did you know that this happened on this street? And it's sort of, I suppose, in the lyric department, sort of ideas emanated from these discussions and these books, you know. And that's, I suppose, that was a starting point for positioning for the lyrics. And I suppose sound-wise, I suppose where we live in West London, North Kensington, there's quite a strong element of different musical cultures. You know, you can walk up Portobello Road, hear Moroccan music, you can hear African music, you can hear punk, you can hear everything.
I think Paul and I started this conversation, which kind of sort of is ongoing and moves from the past to the present to the future very, very effortlessly. And that's kind of what happened with the record. And I think it was easier to sort of. I mean, I've always been into this idea of writing songs which have politics and sort of social issues inside them, but they're more like love songs.
There are reflections harking back to maybe a London past, but it's also tilting a nod to London of the future.
Simon, favourite track on the album? Or the one that you remember most when you were actually recording it?
I think 3 Changes was a good one because it was a song we did in 3 separate ways, or even 4 separate ways. But and then Brian kind of pieced them all together and made some kind of sense out of it. But that's what's called 3 Changes, because it's there's 3 different kind of sections glued together.
Paul, do you have a particular high point?
History song in some ways, because that was, I suppose, the first. I think it was the first song that we actually all started to create together, and also the lyric reference. You know, it's, to me, it's almost like a visual. It's like a painting, actually, and I see it that way. You know, the way it describes the estuary and all these things. They're sort of things that I feel it couldn't have been written in any other country than England, and namely London. You know.
Tell us a little bit about the Herculean.
Well, that's a weird song because there's like a massive great chunk of that which has never made it onto the record. First one was the Herculean battle of recycled waste, and then there's this list. It was like a litany of the big struggles that face mankind, basically. I would like to bring them back because of the way we arranged it. It sounds really, it's quite sort of secular, actually.
It's one of the most disciplined albums for me that I really have to be me. I really have to be really, really in there. You understand? It's a challenge.
When you're kind of looking back, looking forward, and here, that is the nature of what you're trying to achieve. It's timelessness.
And there's so many influences in there that have come together, but it's definitely a futuristic sounding record. But at the same time, it also sounds quite old and antique in some ways. You know, it's a good thing. So in some ways, it was very It was a very strict record, I think. Yeah.
One of the most interesting tracks on the record is Kingdom of Doom. This whole idea, there's this line, what is it, something like, we drink all day while the country's at war.
Because the country's at war.
Because the country's at war. I mean, that sounded like one of those songs which was about the time, but you could have easily, you could have easily, you know, set that record in 1914 or something.
Or 1815 or 1066 or, you know, yeah, sure. And
that's timeless in its own way.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. And yeah, no, it sort of evokes a wonderful image. But then again, the country's still at war, but they haven't sorted out the licensing hours, I know that. So we can't drink all day, actually.
Some places you can.
So, what was, I mean, Kingdom, did the title come early doors, do you think? And
Kingdom of Doom is my sense of humour. It's like, you know, it's Battleship UK, it's like Rule Britannia.
Yeah. And it's like the Raven leaving the city of London, insofar as what that means.
There's a lot of references, there's quite sort of animalistic sort of references to the psyche, related to the psyche, you know, the whale comes, the ravens fly.
Yeah, we're very animal
friendly. There's strange sounds in woods. I like the way that we've been able to create a sort of sense of a slightly pagan element to the record without it sounding kind of, you know, in any way like a new age sort of. It sounds like, you know, there could be spirits on Shepherd's Bush Green. You know what I mean?
Or Peckham Rye, like Blake experienced.
Exactly. My favourite track or song is Northern Whale. It took us about, well, virtually the whole time of making this record to get that anywhere near right. You know, just because it's got such a for Tony and Paul and to find a marriage on that tune was really hard, you know.
Really?
And in the end, we've left everything very kind of minimal. I mean, is continuing a kind of dialogue that it's a song I wrote with Blur many years ago called "This Is a Low" on Part Life, and it's the two. I don't know. I love closing my eyes and travelling around the coast. Maybe I was, a stickleback in a previous life.
Whatever it is.
I don't know, but I find there's a lot of music in that sort of in that atmosphere. Yeah, there's just endless music, you know, and that really is what I don't know. Being a musician is about. It's like keeping hold of those atmospheres you've had since a child and being able to evoke them. You know, it's a form of kind of.
What was behind 80s Life on the album?
I don't know really. It's a sort of strange song. That actually was one of the tunes that we worked on in Nigeria, but it had a very different rhythm to it.
Yeah, completely.
And Brian had a real problem with it.
What was great working with Brian is that, you know, people would be playing stuff and like he'd be looking around at individuals, and I remember doing a part and he'd be looking at me and I go, right, what is it, Brian? He's going, well, you know, a little bit there. What would it be like if you did it a little bit that way? And I go, all right, it's consideration. I said, because I said earlier to Brian, you know, there's not be pressure. I'm not precious about it. Yeah. We want to make a great record. So it was like, and you know, Brian was great insofar as he could be an independent observer because we're too much in the middle of actually playing that he could say, actually, you know, it'd be good if you changed that little bit or adjusted it this way or that, you know.
Ideal producer, he sounds like.
Perfect, yeah.
Easy to get on with, very laid back, and like they say, like a classical producer, just kind of sit at the back and guide people. But then he's not afraid to kind of get on the desk and on the computer and mess with things as well, you know, which is what you want.
Greenfield's penultimate track on the record. Do you remember doing it? Do you remember recording?
I remember recording it, and then about a month later, when Damon came to do the lyrics, I think he had a few lyrics, and I remember coming in once he'd done the lyrics and listening to the song, and it was like, because originally it was a song they'd written for Marianne Faithfull, or
I don't remember writing the
they
song.
actually had the.
I literally don't remember writing the song. I remember the evening, and I remember at some point I kind of in a really drunken state picked up a guitar and said, I'll just write you something now, like that. And
Is that good?
That's it. And that's how
it's never happened again. It's only happened once. I actually, without even thinking, just picked up and every chord fell into place.
The Good, the Bad and the Queen, as a title for the whole project, when did you decide on it, and what meanings
The
does
lyric
it have?
is the blessed routine for the good, the bad and the queen. And
But
the thing
why-
I was going to say,
why- why
going to
did
say is that it's like the Kingdom of Doom, the good, the bad and the queen, England, London, Tide End Town, they're all, it's just, what was great writing the lyrics of this record was finding different ways of saying exactly the same thing in each song.
There's the good, and there's the bad, and at the end of the day, there's the Queen. You know, so it seems sort of apt sort of title for the project. You know.
Filling up time.